What is going on, guys? We are going to get into how you can finally start breaking 90 every time you go out to play. I'm planning on doing breaking 80 and breaking par in these following videos as well. But if you are a player that is struggling to get over the hump of breaking 90, we are going to start off with two big course management tips, and then we are going to finish this video going over some techniques that you need to improve upon. So it's going to be a good mix of how to get better without actually changing your swing, and a good mix of how you can start working on things. So the first thing that we are going to start with is getting off the tee box. So when we're trying to get off the tee, when you're trying to break 90, your goal is not to hit more fairways. Your goal is going to be to keep the ball in play and avoid hitting balls out of play, obviously. So when we're doing this, I would rather you hit the ball in the rough 14 out of 14 times than hit 10 balls in the fairway and 4 balls out of play. So what this is going to be about is, again, increasing the chance of keeping this ball in play off the tee. And we do not need to hit that many greens in regulation if you are trying to break 90. We need 1 par, 17 bogeys at most courses. So we do not need to go out there and stripe it. We just need to get it around, avoid the big numbers. So what we're going to talk about first, again, tee box strategy, is we are going to aim at the widest part of the hole. We are not trying to aim at the widest part of the fairway, although those may be the same at times. This is strictly aiming at the widest part of the hole. So this one here, we have a par 5, and when we are kind of getting through this fairway on the back left portion here, we've got around 260 yards, and this fairway really starts to bottleneck as we kind of get around this corner at around 280 yards. So if you start hitting this ball over 260, you are bringing a lot of trouble into play. You are bringing a lot of hazard into play. So what we're going to do is we are going to bring this aim point back to the widest part of the hole, which is going to be about 230 yards. We have almost 90 yards to land this ball within. And this is not a video to tell you you need to hit more 4-irons off the tee because hitting 4-iron is easier than driver. It's probably not. A lot of you would probably make the argument that it's harder to hit 4-iron, but this is simply math. We are aiming at the widest part of the hole. If you have an 80-yard target and you have a 60-yard target, no matter what the club is, your chances of hitting it inside that 80-yard target are going to be higher. So when you are playing, download different apps to get GPSs. You can use, obviously, rangefinders. Aim at the widest part of the hole. Forget where the fairway is or how the widest part of the fairway is. So for me, driver is going to go through that fairway. 4-iron probably going to be a little too conservative, probably going to get me into that like 215, 220 range. So personally, a 5-wood is perfect. A little back into the wind, that should get me in that 235, 240 range. I open up this landing spot massively, and I have essentially zero risk end play here as I go to hit this. Now that you're keeping it in play off the tee, we are going to talk about aiming into greens. So I'm sure you've heard it a million times, you do not want to fire at pins, and that is going to be exactly what we talk about. But we need to be a little bit more strategic with these aim points and not just think aim to the middle of every green. If you're a player trying to break 90, that precision isn't probably quite there where we can really start aiming too directly. So we have to start erring on the side of caution. So when we look at this position here, we have to look at what is the worst place we could hit this golf ball. Here, it is going to be a bunker on the left side of the green. That is going to be the one that we have to avoid. Then we have to look at where the pin position is. This pin is all the way in the back of the screen. So the last thing you want to do is miss long, because that is going to leave you what is called short-sided, where you may get to a point where you have very little green to work with, but you have a pitch shot with a lot of rough or fairway to cover. Those are very tricky, dicey shots. So the safety zone on this is going to be short right. We have all the room in the world right, and there is nothing short of this green. So say this pin was in the front, we would be looking a little bit long of that pin and a little bit right, because again, we don't want to come up short to a short pin for the same reasons we don't want to go long to a back pin. So this is where, when we're looking at this, say it's about 155 yards or so, we are going to be looking to play this around 145 over on that right edge of the green. If I block it right, I have a chip shot or a pitch shot with a ton of green to work with. If I miss this a little bit left, I still have room left before it goes into that bunker. But if I just go middle of the green, it's going to bring that bunker into play with a not too bad left miss. We're just trying to increase these angles a little bit more. So when we get here, we are going to club down, we are going to come up short to that back pin, unless of course there's water or something like that. That is a priority to avoid. We are going to aim away from the trouble. We are going to aim short of this pin to leave ourselves a good leave. So that's probably going to miss a little short right, and that's exactly kind of what we are looking at as far as aim goes, is missing in a position where we leave ourselves a very high percentage up and down. Again, to break 90, you do not need to hit that many greens in regulation. You can miss every single green, but if you can just get it up near the green, it requires you to get up and down one time. So that's where we're going to get into the short game. So we've taken a look at aiming at the widest part of the hole to keep it in play off the tee to avoid hazards. And then we have talked about aim point strategy, just to get this ball up in the vicinity of the green, neither of which involve changing your swing. Of course, changing the swing mechanics is going to help us eventually get to 80 and break par. But for now, we are trying to get around this green in regulation, not necessarily on it. So there's three things we are going to talk about. There's three shots that you have to have, three things that you need to improve upon. And the first is going to be a low chip shot. So you are going to, more than likely, especially if you're missing in proper spots, end up in a lot of situations like this where we're a little bit off this green. If you would say you would putt this, I have absolutely no problem with that. But you're going to end up in positions where you have just a little bit of fairway or fringe to cover, but we want to avoid the short side, right? We want to make sure that we are missing in spots where we have a lot more green to work with than we have area to cover, not vice versa like the shot you saw last hole. So to hit this shot, we are going to try to keep this fairly simple, and I want you to grab a lower lofted club, and that is going to be your go-to. So I have a pitching wedge here. We are not going to be trying to lift this ball up into the air, so there's no reason to take a lot of loft like a 60 or 58. So with this technique, we are going to focus a lot on the setup of this. So what we're trying to do is hit ball first. We are not trying to use the bounce of the club. We are not trying to hit the ground first and kind of let the bounce slide. Our number one priority here is we have to hit ball first. We need ball first contact. If we get through this ball and hit a little bit of grass after, that is not a problem. Hitting the ground is not the enemy. Hitting the ground before the ball is the enemy. So that's what we've got to avoid and what we're going to do with a lot of the setup here. So with these low shots, everything we are doing is setting us up to get a little steep, hit down through this ball, hit ball first, keep it low. So first thing we're going to do is you are going to get this stance super narrow. We are going to get this ball right off the inside of this back foot. And then from there, we are going to get the handle and the weight leaning forward slightly. So we're going to feel like the end of this grip points just in front of the belly button. And I like to get that weight about, we'll call it 10% forward. But the way I like players to think of this is think about where the center of your chest is. We are trying to feel center of chest over top of front foot. I see some players try to get the weight forward and they bump the hips forward. I feel like I have a lot more weight on my front foot right now, but you can see my spine is leaning back and my back shoulder has actually lowered, even though I've gotten more weight on the front foot. That is a recipe for hitting chunks and dropping this club into the ground. So what we're going to do is think center of chest over front shoelaces. That is going to get the upper body leaning. And now we're in a position where our body is forward, our stance is narrow, the ball is back, the hands are forward. This is setting us up to de-loft this club and hit ball first. When we are looking at this down the line view, I want to make sure that we are stepping close to this golf ball and we are getting this handle a little bit higher. We are going to feel like we stand that club up just a little bit, and we are going to feel like the toe is on the ground and the heel's up slightly, and we're going to get close to it. That again is going to help avoid that club from kind of digging into the ground a little too much. Usually the toe can get through a little bit easier. Usually this heel likes to dig a little bit more. So when it comes to that setup, we are going to get narrow stance, hands high and forward, center of the chest forward, ball back. And really from there, it comes down to, I like to focus on the chest. I'm a big fan of taking a towel and throwing it under the armpits just to make sure that the arms and the body are moving together. When we are getting in through here, I want to make sure that the arms are not disconnecting and you're not getting this back arm flaring and that back part of the towel drops, or not getting in through here, getting real wristy and kind of letting the elbow flare and the towel drops. I like to feel like when we get set up here, we are trying to maintain the angle to this back wrist. We are not trying to help this ball up into the air by adding loft to it. We are trying to maintain this angle as we are going ahead and rotating the chest. We are feeling center of the chest, end of the grip, and the hands are all moving at a similar rate through the shot, and the towel can help with that connection. The last thing to think about with this is we again don't want to hit behind this ball. So you need to make sure that you get forward and stay forward. So we went over the setup, getting lean forward, but don't undo that on the way down by trying to help this ball into the air and leaning back. You want to make sure that the center of the chest is staying over that front foot as we get into this position and we go ahead and work down through this shot. And as you do this, it should produce a shot that comes out nice and low and rolls back to this pin. Of course, it's going to take time to get that feel dialed in, but this is a very low risk shot because the strike doesn't have to be perfect. That's the beauty of it. We have very little loft and we are not swinging too big. So typically, if I hit this ball a little bit thin because I didn't swing hard at it, it still runs out pretty into a decent position. If I take a 60 degree where I have a lot of loft and I swing much bigger and I catch this ball thin, because I swung bigger, I'm generating more speed. When I generate more speed and thin it, that ball's over the green. On the opposite side, if I chunk this a little bit, because the face is a little bit flatter and we don't have a lot of loft, it still will release a little bit for you. So the misses are going to be much better. So if we hit one here, we're going to get stance narrow, ball on the back toe, handle high, handle forward, chest leaning forward, and then from there we are going to feel like that chest rotates as we stay on that left side, or lead side, left side for a right-handed player, of course. That's going to get that ball to come out nice and low. It's going to run out to that pin nicely. So that is going to be a shot you absolutely have to have in your game if you're not hitting a lot of greens. So shot number 2 that you absolutely have to have if you are trying to break 90 is a mid-trajectory pitch shot. So for obvious reasons, I cannot get in here and hit a bump and run or it's going to go into this hill, but I don't need to hit a crazy flop either. These are going to be the shots where they need to get up just a little bit higher, land a little softer. We're going to mainly do this by changing the setup and changing the club selection, but keeping the overall movement fairly similar. So what I want you to do is grab something between a 54 and a 60 degree, depending on what you are most comfortable with. And this setup is what we're going to tweak here. So we need this ball to get up in the air, not stay low. So what I'm going to have you do is take the ball and get it off of the inside of the back foot. You can widen the stance a little bit if you would like, and we are going to shift the ball a little bit more front center of the stance, or sort of off this front heel. The shaft lean is not going to be quite as aggressive. I want to see the end of this club just in front of belly button. So by the time we move that ball forward, that end of that club is going to be minimally forward. We're not keeping these hands back or getting them way forward to de-loft this thing. Getting those hands just lean just in front of the belly button there. And same exact thing with the chest. I want to see the center of the chest lean over that front foot, and we are going to make sure that we are getting these hands up on the higher side, getting a little closer to this. The ball position being forward is going to help the ball get in the air. Having more loft is going to help the ball get in the air. You do not need to do anything to try to lift this ball and get behind it and get this thing airborne. So we are still staying forward. We are still staying on that front side and making sure that we don't let ourselves fall back. We are kind of working down through this ball. I'm a big fan of using that same towel, of getting that thing under the armpits and making sure that we are maintaining our connection while we are hitting these shots, not letting the arms disconnect. You don't need to get super wristy with these. We are mainly doing it with the setup and keeping the technique the same. So if we get in here, we are going to get that stance minimally wider. Ball is going to be up off that front foot. We are going off that front heel, handle high, slightly forward, center of the chest forward. And from there, we are staying forward and rotating the body, maintaining nice connection, moving the hands and the chest that same rate. That's going to get that ball to come up a little bit higher, but not super high. Again, it's not a big crazy flop shot, but that is going to be one that you absolutely have to have, and we'll get into this last shot here. The third thing you absolutely have to do if you are going to break 90 is you have to improve your speed control, and you have to be able to lag putt. I'm going to go over a trick for this. I'm going to go over a drill for this to help you with that speed control. So when it comes to lag putting, this is going to be an extremely important one because, like you know by now, we are not aiming at pins. So if you do hit a green, you more than likely are not going to be close. If you hit a ball close, it's more than likely going to be on accident, or it should be if you're sort of following these aiming points. So you're going to have a lot of putts in that, say, 25 to 45 foot range. And we can't afford to 3-putt these. Of course, 3-footers, 4-footers, 5-footers are critical. But if you can't even get the ball to those points, those putts don't really matter. We have to be able to get the ball consistently inside of that 3, 4, 5-foot circle before we can even start worrying about those. So when you are lag putting, one of my favorite tricks to do here is taking practice strokes looking at the hole. I've talked about this a ton on shorter form content and instructional videos here. But I think of putting almost like shooting a basketball or throwing a football. You've never once gotten a basketball and turned around to shoot it and thought, okay, I'm about 16 feet away. This is my 16-foot jump shot. You've never done that. It's catch and react. You've never thrown a football to somebody or a baseball to somebody calculating how far back your arm needs to go. You see where they're running and then you kind of just let it flow. And your eyes and brain just kind of know how to link it together. But putting, we get in here, we have a target and we look back down, and then we are kind of stagnant here where we're not able to really see where we're trying to go with this thing. So our brain never really has the chance to kind of catch up and react there. So what I'll see a ton of players do is get in here and they'll take practice strokes and they'll take a practice stroke like this, and I obviously will be able to watch them and say, okay, this ball's not getting halfway there. They'll look up at the hole and then they'll repeat the practice stroke and it gets halfway there. But if you just take a look up, you don't need to get super technical or mechanical with this, but I'll get in here and I'll take a look at the hole just to get an idea, maybe take one practice stroke looking down. And then I'll take 3 or 4 just letting it flow, looking at the hole. Where if you get in here and you're taking these really tiny practice strokes and you look up, your brain is going to automatically realize that ball is not getting there. If you're sitting here taking huge practice strokes and you look up, your body is going to naturally feel that's a little too hard and it's going to back it off a little bit. So I don't want you getting in here going stagnant and mechanical where it's take a practice stroke, reset, look at the hole, take a practice stroke, reset, and you're going over these constant kind of restarting and resetting. We're just letting it flow. It's nice and fluid. We're just looking at that hole, letting it flow 3 or 4 times just to kind of let the eyes lock into that. We go ahead, step into the putt, we look back up at this thing just for one final time. Try to repeat that practice stroke as best as you can and let it rip. One thing that I also want you to get out of the habit of is thinking a putt has to get to the hole to be a good putt. From 40 feet, you're not trying to make that. You're trying to 2-putt it every time. We're trying to avoid 3 putts. So I would take a 1-foot putt that is short of the hole over a 5-footer that is past the hole. Just because a putt gets past it and had a chance to go in doesn't necessarily mean it's a good putt. So don't focus on that too much. We are just trying to get it up into these very high percentage ranges. Doesn't matter if they are short or if they are long. A 1-footer past the hole is just as good as a 1-footer short of the hole. It's going to be a 2-putt either way, which is the goal here. So let's get into a drill to help you with that speed control. So when it comes to speed control, playing leapfrog is one of my favorite games here. So I'm going to just give myself a rough range where it's going to be about 2 putter widths, or we're going to call it about 2 paces, 6 feet, whatever you want to call that. So I've got a flag stick. You can use a club, you can use an alignment stick, and then I've got a gate here. This is going to be irrelevant as far as the size of it goes. If you want to widen it out, that's fine. But your goal is simply trying to get as many golf balls in between the gate, between the tees, and the back edge of the flag stick. But each golf ball has to get longer than the last. So if your first ball comes up short, you got to restart. If you hit one that ends up here, that's great. If your second ball comes up short of that one, even if it's past the tees, you got to restart. If you hit a ball into here and your second one hits the flag stick, you got to restart. And give yourself a goal. Say we've got 20 feet here, and give yourself a goal of 3 or 4 golf balls getting inside of that range. You can start somewhat challenging, but not overly aggressive with it where you're not trying to fit 10 in. So if I get in here and I hit one of these, hopefully you can get one just past those tees there. So that's not great. That's not a great start, right? Because I got past the tees, yes, but now my second ball has to be somewhere in between this range. It is going to be a lot harder to get that ball to get just past that initial one. So I haven't left myself a whole lot of room. So if I get in here, try to hit one more. We'll see if that has enough pace. So that's going to come up just short. That would be a restart. So that's going to be one where it can be hard to teach yourself feel, but that is going to be a good one to really get yourself dialed in on these precise differences as far as the stroke goes, really learning to kind of dial it back or give it a little bit more. And as you get better at it, you can make your goal for the following week to get 1 more ball, or next session to get 5 balls in there instead of 4. And then we can back it up from 20 feet to 25 feet, just trying to constantly beat your own personal record, getting better and better at this. So we'll give this one more go here. So that's a similar but slightly better start. So got a little bit closer to those tees. So now I need to get this one behind that ball and behind that flag, and just short of that flag stick. We'll see. So that's going to be a good one, right? So I'm still going here. I have that second ball just past the first, but didn't hit the flag stick. A little bit of aim comes into play here, so you try not to hit the golf balls that are there previously. So try to hit that just a little bit harder than I hit ball 2. So that's a good one, right? So this is a good little run here. We've gotten 3 of them in here. So now if I can try to get 4, that'd be pretty good from this range. Trying to get that 4th ball right in between the ball I just hit and that flag stick. That's going to be a little firm. So that would have hit that flag stick. That would have been a restart if my goal is 4. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. That is a great way to teach yourself a little bit of feel and really get that speed control dialed in. I hope you guys found that helpful. I will get the break 80 and the break par videos out in the future. Would love if you could like and subscribe, and we will go from there. I will talk to you guys next time.